Hey, it's Pastor Mike. Before you start today's episode, I want to tell you about my current sermon series called Trends versus Truth. And when something trends, it feels true. You hear it enough from enough people you respect, and you assume it has to be true, but just because something sounds right doesn't mean it is right. So, what does God have to say about some of the most trendy statements of our time and culture? In this series, we're going to look at 5 of them. God told me, be you, love is love, who am I to judge, and practice self-care. Oh, this is one of my favorite series of the whole year. I hope you can check it out by looking up Time of Grace with Pastor Mike Novotny wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And of course, you can always watch this series on timeofgrace.org.
I'm standing here today in the Garden of Gethsemane, at the very base of the Mount of Olives, on the other side of the old city walls of the city of Jerusalem. And I'm just thinking how crazy it is, how much Jesus loves us. There's a part of Jesus' suffering and death that is so powerful, but you'll miss it unless you understand the geography of Jerusalem. So let me tell you a story from the Old Testament. Way back in the book of 2 Samuel, King David was betrayed by someone he thought he could trust, his own son Absalom. You can read the whole story if you want. His son Absalom had political ambitions. He betrayed his father, declared himself king, and David knew he was in danger. David back in those days lived in his palace just to the south, to the left of the gold dome behind me. So when he was in danger, do you know which way he ran? This way. He went down into the Kidron Valley behind me, and he started to climb up the Mount of Olives, because just on the other side of this mountain is nothing. It's a barren wilderness, a desert with caves and winding paths. It's the perfect place to run and hide, a place where no pursuing king wants to play hide and seek. Now, let me prove it to you from the book of 2 Samuel. It says, the king also crossed the Kidron Valley, and all the people moved on towards the wilderness. David continued up the Mount of Olives, weeping as he went. David was in danger, so where did he go? That way, to the wilderness. And knowing that makes me think of what happened to Jesus 2,000 years ago. Remember the story from the Gospel of Matthew? Jesus celebrates the Lord's Supper in Matthew chapter 26, and then he comes to his favorite place to pray, the Garden of Gethsemane. Judas, his close friend, is betraying him. The soldiers are being gathered. They're about to march out with their swords and torches. The disciples are all exhausted. Even Peter, James, and John are leaning up against these trees, fast asleep. There are no witnesses. Nobody's watching. What could Jesus have done? Exactly what David did. I mean, his friends were sleeping here. All the danger was over there. He could have ran up there. He could have stopped at Mary and Martha's house just over the crest of the Mount of Olives, picked up some bread for his pockets, and ran into the wilderness to hide. He could have survived. Like David, he could have escaped. Do you know what Jesus did for you? He stayed. He knew exactly what was happening. He had predicted his betrayal, and he knew what it would cost him, that he'd be beaten, he'd be scourged, flogged, the crown of thorns, the robe, the mocking, the nails, the cross, the cup of God's wrath. He knew about all of it, but he chose to stay. What wondrous love is that Jesus would stay for us. I love that fact about Jesus. He sticks around even though it costs him. If you've ever tried to love a messy person, you know that love requires sacrifice. It takes patience and compassion, time and energy, and so much forgiveness. And that's exactly what Jesus does for you. So if you ever wonder if you're loved, if you ever wonder if you're truly forgiven, if you ever question if Jesus could save a person just like you, I want you to remember this place, Gethsemane. That Jesus, like David, could have run. Instead, he stayed. In fact, he even woke up his friends and said, get up, let's go. Not up there, but down there, to his cross and to your salvation. That's the good news of the gospel that God teaches us right here in the Garden of Gethsemane. Earlier this year, I got to explore Israel. I'm sitting literally in the place where Jesus' feet touched. I saw some amazing places. The old city of Jerusalem, the Garden of Gethsemane, beautiful Nazareth, on the Mount of Beatitudes, Capernaum, on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. And I can't wait to share these video devotions with you.